Started. All right, so we have Magnus taking on Vasily Ivanchuk, I believe, and this may be for some of you the first time he's playing an opponent that you've actually heard of before. Ivanchuk, one of the more famous names on this list of his opponents. Magnus played this game in 2007, and here we go. Magnus had the white pieces playing Queen's Gambit style. Black plays this opening. Magnus grabs the center with e4. The knight trades. Bishop fianchettos. Black is attacking the center. White owns the center and is trying to protect it, which is a pretty common theme in many chess openings. Both sides castle on the king side. Black attacks the bishop. White goes back. White has moved his rook over to c1, perhaps anticipating that this file could become open, and it does become open. So now he's got a rook in excellent position in addition to having the pawn center. So that's pretty good news for white. Black also needs to figure out how to develop this piece, needs to improve this knight. Queen goes up, other bishop fianchettos, so black has this double fianchetto setup going on here. White plays pawn to h4, and now, first moment for you guys to answer a question. I want you to do Igor. What should black play here using the Igor thinking method, which for anyone who has not learned Igor with us from Coach Santos yet, Igor is improve your worst piece, go forward, occupy the center, and restrict your opponent's pieces. So that's what Igor stands for. And what do you think black should do here using that thinking process? This is a position where doing Igor could help you to find the best move. I like that. Two very logical moves coming into the chat here. Both of those moves are good. So the best move in this position, according to the engine, is knight to c6. Improve your worst piece, which, I mean, I guess there's an argument that your true worst piece is probably this one, the rook on a8. But sometimes it's okay for the rooks to be out of the game for a little bit in the opening. You do want to eventually get them into the game for sure. But in this case, it's the worst minor piece that we're going to improve. Knight to c6 would be the best move. This piece just needs to get back to a more logical square. It came here to attack a bishop, but now it's no longer doing that. That's not where it wants to be for the long term. A knight on the rim is dim, as they say, and so you don't want to keep it there. Instead, black played queen to e7, which is also a developing move, logical, but just not quite the best move in the position. Pawn to h5 happens, and by the way, you may be thinking, can he just take? But if that were to happen, bishop to g5, and this would be very good for white. We're just attacking the queen, getting an attack in place, and is the queen trapped here actually? I think it looks like it is. Wow. Engine wants this check. I haven't even looked at this. Engine wants this check, then rook to f2, and then queen takes g5, giving up the queen, and then not even taking this, but rook there. That is an engine line if I've ever seen one. Wow, how funny. So yeah, white just won a queen. Black's gonna win a rook. An exchange, I should say. That's funny. Wow. So all that to say, if you were suspicious about taking this pawn, you had good reason to be. This smells like a trapped queen and is in fact a trapped queen. Whenever this, like the diagonal, the easiest route back to your own position is blocked. Whenever that's the case, you got to be kind of suspicious, because often there's not that many squares that are actually safe in your opponent's territory. So yeah, it's very much a trapped queen. Second best move is to give it up right away. That's pretty sad. So yeah, taking the pawn would not have been a good idea. Good job Not saying that. Queen to e7, h5. Yeah, white comes here. Black trades off the rooks. White trades off the rooks. And we're moving in the direction of an endgame. White plays this move. This is a nice bishop, of course, on f6. And what is the problem with trading bishops here for black? Why would black maybe not want to trade the bishops? Yeah, definitely. Whenever you fianchetto to bishop, that bishop is a key defender of that color squares. Like, because you've already pushed this pawn to g6, which means h6 and f6 are both, weak because the pawn no longer defends. So that means you need the bishop. Generally speaking, you want the bishop to stay on the board and continue defending those squares, especially as long as your opponent has a queen, because there is some checkmating potential. And in the immediate aftermath, the big thing to notice is if you trade off the bishops, the pawn takes, and you already have a huge mate threat in just like the next couple moves that white can do. And because the pawn stops the f-pawn from moving, and you can't do any discovered defense with the queen, it's like not super easy to, not super like convenient to get back. You maybe have to do this and then come over here. So you've got to be proactive about defending. Even on this move, you probably have to go back here. I'm guessing. Let's throw on the engine. Yeah, look at that, queen d8. You have to do that, and then in that case, queen can't even come here because the queen would take the pawn. So yeah, you have to be proactive about defending. Taking the bishop would create some danger with the pawn and the queen coming in for mate, as you said, Oliver. So knight to c6 happens here. Finally, black does improve that knight, and the queen comes in, starting an attack. And find me white's best move in this position. This is a nice puzzle. So in a position like this, you should be looking at checks, captures, and threats first. And that shouldn't take you too long, not the checks part at least, because I don't see any checks for white. Captures, you could, I guess you can quickly look at taking these pawns and see that you're going to lose the queen. If you take this bishop, you're just going to lose the queen, and that doesn't get you anything good. So that doesn't really lead to anything. And so then you want to look at your threats and what kind of things you can do. And so maybe you scan things like bishop here, and you see that, okay, the knight's just going to take. And so then, only then you start looking at, okay, well, maybe I really do just have to save my queen, the natural and logical thing. But you don't want to just save it randomly. This is the key thing. You don't want to just go back just to go back or just to save something. You want to, even when you're retreating, you want to be creating threats. You want to be creating problems for your opponent. So which retreat do you think creates a problem for black? I'll give some time for other people to see if they have any thoughts. There are a lot of squares that we could retreat the queen to. Yeah, queen to c1, very good. Well done to David and Oliver. Queen c1 is the move. Even when retreating, you want to look for those attacking moves. Very good, Vihan. Yep. Queen c1. You pin the knight. You want to look to give your opponent problems, even while you're solving the problems that he gave you. This is white's best move, and it pins the knight. I'll show you the engine in case you don't believe me. Top move, queen to c1. And Magnus found it because he's Magnus. And this is an especially nasty pin because it's not super easy. Like, the queen is undefended. Like, if this queen was defended, let's just pretend that this bishop was, like, here instead. If the queen was defended, then it wouldn't really be a pin because the knight could just move and it would only be a trade of queens. But because the queen's undefended, the knight can't move. And so this is going to be a real problem for black potentially in the future. So naturally, we're going to want to put pressure on a pinned piece, as Funmaster Mike likes to say. Bishop to b5. We're attacking the knight. Black has to defend it. And then what? I want to see if you guys can calculate. Black is going to defend it with bishop to d7. And then what do we do? How do we continue to play this? Because it seems like they have enough defenders, and we don't really have a kingside attack. So what should you do here? Are you sure about d5? Very good. Yeah, good job to everyone who said d5. I hope you calculated out all the way instead of just saying, oh, d5, knight d4, it looks good. I hope you made sure to calculate and realize, okay, black actually has no way whatsoever of saving the knight, and it's guaranteed to win the knight. You've got to be certain about it. You've got to know that it's going to be winning when you sacrifice a pawn like this. But yes, it is correct. d5, d4, yeah, d5, yeah, to clear the square d4 for the knight. Very good. Yeah, well done to everyone who found it. And yeah, it's easy to take a guess when solving a puzzle. Oh, it looks good, it looks threatening. But having the confidence to play that move in an actual game is what's most important. And that's why, you're not going to take a guess like this in an actual rated game that you care about. So that's why you really have to do the calculation even when you're solving puzzles. And I'll show you the engine here. This is interesting. White actually has to play d5, or has to find the d5 idea to keep his advantage. He's only got two moves here. It's d5 and trading bishops immediately followed by d5. So he literally has to play d5 to keep his advantage in this position. Otherwise, it goes away. Otherwise, black becomes okay. So, yeah, d5 absolutely necessary. And that just shows that you can't be afraid to sacrifice a pawn for tactics when you have a better position. Because sometimes that's the kind of thing you have to be looking for, and that's how you convert the advantage into a win. Yeah, totally, Oliver. Haven't we all? I'm guilty of it too. We've all done that. In an ideal world, we would never just guess on a move, but that's not the world we live in. Yeah, knight to d4 happens, and there's just not much that black can do here. Trading off doesn't really help his conundrum since he's about to lose a piece. We do win the knight. The queen takes a pawn. We take, they take. It's all just a trade. And now, when the dust settles, Magnus is up a bishop for 2 pawns, which is winning. Black offers a queen trade, which is an interesting choice because I feel like maybe he was confident about these pawns, but yeah, this is totally winning for white. I think maybe the queens could have kept some checks and some annoyingness and some threefold repetition potential on the board. Certainly at the lower levels, I would think you want to keep the queens on the board and see if you can get your opponent to make a mistake. But of course, this is Ivanchuk versus Magnus. This is not the lower levels of chess. So the bishop restricts the pawns with this move, and black would resign shortly. Magnus did have a winning advantage. This would be plus 5.6 here, according to the engine. So a very nice advantage here, and Magnus would win this game. So to summarize, go back through the game quickly. Oh yeah, there's one note that I think I forgot to make. There was also a moment in the opening. You may have noticed this. Does it look to you like white can just take a pawn here? D takes c5. And then black takes, and then white takes. And this whole line here, taking the pawn is actually not the best thing for white. And it's a bit deep, and I wouldn't blame people for taking this pawn. But I'm going to show you what happens here, because it's kind of interesting. So black plays this move, and he is now kind of skewering the bishop to this pawn, so white would defend it. Black would attack it, improving the knight. Black would trade, bishop goes here, pawn to h3, and white's up a pawn here, but black has good bishops, and the c-pawn is isolated for white, so it could be a weakness. And the engine actually favors black here, which is saying something significant because the engine is generally too materialistic for its own good in terms of, its ability to effectively analyze human games. So you'd expect it to favor white. White's up a pawn here. So the fact that the engine actually likes black is pretty significant. So this is actually a good position with good counterplay for black. And I think you've got to be pretty strong, honestly, to resist the temptation of seeing a pawn because you see in advance that his position is going to have enough compensation for the pawn. It's a pretty obscure concept, I feel like. But yeah, this is just good to be aware that, not every pawn is good to take because if the opponent has a crushing activity advantage, you're not going to have much fun playing that position. And especially at the lower levels of chess, at the human levels, not like Super GM, you're going to have a hard time playing a position where your opponent has more activity than you, and you've got to maybe defend some pawns. So that's the kind of thing you maybe don't want to go into. So does anyone have any questions from the lesson? Very cool idea with this d5 pawn sacrifice. Just looking to attack the knight with another piece. Always look for those clearances, those pawn sacrifices. Don't be afraid to sacrifice when you're winning. Even when retreating, you want to look for ways to make threats and go on the attack.